When I built Women of Denver, my social media strategy, while I did do posts and I did pay to boost those posts, when I had breaks from work, I would go sit outside, I would get my food, I would sit outside, and then I would sit there and I would find local women and I would just say, oh, good job, congratulations. And I would just say nice things on their posts. And I remember meeting this one person who was the first that ever told me that that mattered. And she looked like she was miserable at the event. I said, why are you here? And she said, because you're everywhere and I can't escape you. So I might as well show up here. And I realized, oh my gosh, so it's working.
Welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused to inspire you to take action to start or to scale your side hustle income streams. I'm your host, Joan Posivy, author of The Way Success Works, How to Decide, Believe, and Begin to Live Your Best Life. Today's guest knows marketing, but besides that, she's proven her ability to start and grow 2 side hustles while holding down a very full-time corporate job. Eventually, she sold one of her businesses, but being the adventurous entrepreneur, she then started looking for yet another income source. And instead of starting another, Krystal Covington decided to buy an already established online business, one that she could grow by applying her areas of expertise. Have you ever thought about buying an existing business rather than starting from scratch? It's an interesting idea and one that I'll explore in today's end of episode takeaway. But before that, you'll discover a lot of tips and ideas to apply to your side hustle, because we'll hear how Krystal landed in a new city and launched and grew what would become a 6-figure business known as the Women of Denver. Why she lost a lot of money in her lace front wigs venture, what caused her marketing agency to flourish, and a lot of words of wisdom sprinkled throughout this episode. Now here is my conversation with today's side hustle hero, Krystal Covington. Welcome, Krystal.
Hey, it's great to be here, Joan. Thanks for the invitation.
Let's start back in 2014 when you were a corporate executive and started 2 side hustles. Is that correct? A women's organization and a marketing firm?
Now, when you say it like that, it sounds insane. I clearly had a lot of time on my hands. Yes, I did. I was working as a communications specialist. And then after that role, I was a PR director. And in those roles, I still somehow made time to run a women's organization that had grown to thousands of participants. So people could participate in our meetings or join as a member. And I had hundreds of members paying a monthly membership. And I also did marketing consulting on the side. I always kind of did that. I often, prior to moving to Denver, I did it often for nonprofits for free. And then when I moved to Denver, I had a friend, she reached out and she said, I need some help with my marketing. I need you to help me with social media. I need a blog. I need this. And she said, but of course I'll pay you. And I thought, oh, I could be paid for this.
Wow. Light bulb.
I had no idea that my time was worth money. And so I actually had gone to my coworkers and I said, someone has offered to pay me for services to do this outside of work. What should I charge them? And they told me to charge what my overtime rate would be.
Okay.
And so time and a half.
Way to look at it. Yeah.
They said it's after work hours, so time and a half. And so I charged time and a half.
That's great.
I've gotten much more sophisticated with pricing now.
Yes, just like the organization and firm grew, so did your pricing structure.
Yes.
What caused you to create a women's organization?
I was lonely. Loneliness will make a woman do a lot of different things. But I came to Denver. I had my dream job, but I did not have my dream friendships and relationships. I had no one to just go to the mall with. I had no one to help me. If anything happened, I always believed that you needed to have a network of people to help you. And coming to a new place, my husband and I just had each other. And so if something happened to the both of us or one of us, we needed that community. And so I had also always loved blogging. I loved creating content. I had these ideas. When I first moved to Denver, I didn't have work. I quit my job and did not come with work. And so it took about a month plus maybe a week or two to get myself that dream job. And so I was just kind of walking the streets and looking at things and learning and talking to people. And in that time, I remember envisioning having this way to meet people by interviewing them. And I said, well, one day when I get brave, I'm just going to interview people on the street. I'm just going to write stories about these women and what they're doing. And so I did it. I said, okay, well, I'm going to make it a little bit more structured. And so I'm not going to just interview people on the street, but I'm going to find really wonderful women that are leaders, and I'm going to interview them for this blog. And then, of course, if we're going to be doing this, I should be hosting events and bringing these women together. Yes. Part of marketing is events. And so I've done tons of events over my career. And so I was very excited to host something. And so it just all sort of came together. And it just was, okay, I'm doing this content. Now I'm hosting these events, which is also content. And then I'm meeting these people, and then it just kind of turned into them asking for what they wanted this to become. And they helped me envision and co-create the Women of Denver, which is what it became.
It sounded like it grew very organically. It's not like you had this master plan from the beginning.
Yeah, it was organic based off feedback, and it continued to be so. Even now, I sold the organization this summer to a longtime friend that had always admired the group. And she said, I wish I had created this. I remember it was 2016. And she said, gosh, I wish I had thought of this before you did. And now she owns it. So,
oh, fantastic. Sounds like a real win-win, actually.
Yeah. And I'm still supporting her in envisioning what it's going to be, but taking the feedback, because I get emails from people that say, oh, I got solicited to join this other group. I like what they're doing. Can you do something like this? And, is that something that you would be willing to do? So I could just stick with what I have here at Women of Denver versus joining that. And I think that's wonderful. It's amazing that I created an open door for feedback that helped me create something that people wanted.
That's fantastic, because so often people are trying to devise ways to get their client base to actually give them feedback through surveys, et cetera. And here you've got people just reaching out to you and say, hey, how about this idea? That's terrific. So it sounds like the foundation of it kind of started with the blog, and then it was events that really grew the organization.
Yes. The blog came first, and I had this big, again, I worked in marketing. And so I had these people in my workplace, and I said, hey, will you come to my house and help me record these interviews I have in my head? And a couple of coworkers came. They helped me put a little setup in my bedroom. We had a really big bedroom in this condo that we lived in downtown. And so we took our bedroom and turned it into a
I love
set. And had these folks bring their own cameras and their own equipment and try to put this together. They did editing and everything. They did it all just to help me. It was complimentary, volunteer, extracurricular.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It was so sweet of them. And it was so beautiful. And at that time, it was still possible to get viewership on YouTube and Facebook without really sponsoring. And so I posted those up and people saw them. I also used them as marketing tools when I posted to Eventbrite. And so I would post my little events on Eventbrite, and they were just little coffee shop chats, and I wasn't charging initially. But then once it got really big and too many people started showing up, I realized I needed to have bigger event space. I needed to do things differently, and it needed to be structured. And so I actually found a woman that mentored me and educated me. I didn't know at the time she was actually planning to leave the industry. She had her own membership organization, and she was seeking out someone to buy hers in the future.
Oh, okay.
So she gave me information about how she built and structured hers and helped me to make everything work. All again, just really from the goodness of our heart, mentorship. And I did everything she told me to do. It worked perfectly. I was able to I launched, I started charging, I started really having a beautiful organized group and continued to grow from that foundation. And then having that marketing background really helped. And then networking helped me to build more clients for my marketing. And so I would have people say, oh, so-and-so said that you did her marketing. Can you help me with mine? And so then I had a waiting list because I still had a full-time job.
Wow, a full-time job building this plus the marketing organization.
Yes. Yeah.
Where and before I leave the women's organization, because I love how you just built it up from the grassroots. When you started inviting people through Eventbrite, where did you hold them initially? Like
They
in
were
coffee shops or rent a little room somewhere or?
Coffee shops. So the coffee shops here in Denver, a lot of them do have a little side room that you can either pay per hour, and it at the time it was probably about $25 per hour, or you could just buy things and, just everybody needs to buy something and you can sit in this area and you just have to ask for the space. And so I had a couple different coffee shops that I was using that had that setup.
Terrific. And by the time you sold it, what did that split look like from, it sounded like you had a couple of tiers there, a free component of the group and then paid membership?
People could put up a profile on the website for free. And then in order to attend, they needed to pay a monthly membership. And there were different membership tiers. So there was one where they were more there to promote themselves, and another where they were more so to network and educate. And so those were the couple of tiers. So it was like $35 for the just coming to events membership, and then $150 for people who wanted to promote. And we had a magazine, so we would promote them in the magazine. We'd promote them on the website.
That's per month.
It was per month. Funny story. I had somebody reach out when I sold it, they changed the website, and there were some people that the links, I had done a really good job of SEO. And so the person noticed when her link was removed, when the person, she shifted over the website and the link went away, and she emailed me and said, hello, I lost my link on your website. And I thought, oh goodness, it was quite valuable. Well, that made me blush. I thought, well, it was that important.
Well, what made you decide to sell?
After the pandemic, so I have two children. It was challenging already pre-pandemic with my little boy. He had turned 1 in 2020. And so he was getting old enough now to start being more helpful and all of that. So I could do some things with him. But then I had my next baby. Oh, wow. And now with two kids and one of them being little, and I'm not serving the way I should be serving. And I don't have, there's childcare. It's so expensive to have childcare. Yeah. So I just said, you know what? I want to be here with my kids. I don't want to send them to daycare. Having an in-home nanny is just, I have to basically work so much in order to afford that or get, and so I thought I'll just be the in-between. And so I have just enough clientele that I can manage with my team without having to take on so many hours that I'm not able to be with my kids, and have just enough childcare where it's comfortable, but it's not enough capacity. I don't have the capacity to be fully as engaged and as supportive as I was to the community when I didn't have any children and when I didn't have so much going on. And so her son is older. She travels a lot. She has so much energy. She is just, oh my God, so well connected. She's just perfect at doing this. And I just said, if there's people who are in a better position over the next few years to continue this better than I can, then they should be running it. And so it's, so far, I feel like it was the best decision. And I had also learned about the sales process because I had just bought a business. I bought a skincare business because the person who was running it, also a mom, she was moving to London, where she was originally from. She had been living in Minnesota and running this business, and she didn't want to move to London and still do that. She wanted to be able to be there for her children, right, and just work she had her own, she's very similar to me. It sounded like we're almost the same person. And she had a marketing background, and she just markets for bigger companies. I market for smaller companies and do smaller level branding. And so she was doing her marketing consultancy, and she was just taking it overseas and didn't want to take all this with her. And so I thought, oh my goodness, so this is her story and this is how this went down. And this was relatively easy. And so I said, well, I can do this process for myself. And now that I understand how you sell a business, I can go through that process and, someone I trust already.
Right.
And having that, be quite easy.
But at some point along the way, you ended up quitting that corporate job, correct?
Yes.
At what point in your side hustle story did that take place?
It was a few years in. So I started my women's organization and the side hustle marketing in 2014. And it was 2017 when I officially quit and never went back to my corporate job again. And so
what was your revenue from the side hustles looking like at that point?
It was 45,000. So it was just enough
right
for when it comes to business and somebody's saying, well, I make 30, and I know there's somebody that's going to say, well, that's a decent amount of money, but when you have expenses and taxes and all of that,
of course, yes,
it ends up being just enough to run the business and eat and kind of contribute to the household. And so I had just enough, and my husband was willing to let that be the thing and said, okay, well, I'll be there and I'll, make sure that I have my stuff together. And it actually motivated him to get he ended up getting a really great job after, because he said, well, nice. I need to be prepared to buckle down if anything doesn't work out. It did work out for me, but
and by that time you had proof of concept too.
Yes, I had proof of concept, and we knew at that point that all I needed to do was be available, because I wasn't running anything. I was at work. And so I would try to leave work. I had a relationship at work where they knew I was doing this. They didn't like it. Even though I did work well over 40 hours, I traveled for the company, but I was getting in trouble at work. And so they would say, were you just on TV talking about something else?
Right.
Did you leave for 2 hours in the middle of the day to go to an event? And I had an event once a week that was, a little ways away. It was a 1-hour event, but it took 30 minutes to get there and back.
Sure.
And so I thought, well, goodness gracious, I thought I was at a decent level, where I could leave and come back, but I was not. And so it really was, I would have stayed a little bit longer to try to, I would have maximized that income a little bit longer, but there was too much brushing against. And then I really couldn't be effective. I had people volunteering to help me, and they're not skin in the game, really. They're there because they love what I'm doing and they want to volunteer and support it. But I needed to be part of it. And so when I actually left my job, I was able to really quickly grow it significantly. So the next year was over 1.5 times that revenue. And so I did really well.
What do you think caused it to, I was going to say, what did you do to grow the business? But it sounded like a lot of business was coming to you.
It just came. So because I was networking so much, and I mean, people would see me in articles, people would see me on TV. I was all over the place. I really did. And even to this day, things just come to me. And I called it the 4 keys to influence back then. And I wrote this little workbook about it. But basically, when you're really visible and you appear really trustworthy and you just have this charisma and really bring your authenticity to everything that you're doing, it attracts that back to you. So people trust you. They want to work with you. They want to find something they can do to support you. It brings a positive flow of results to your business when you're out there. And it takes a lot of energy. You have to have it. I don't have it today as I did then, but I'm still able to live on the residual results of what I had done. When people look me up and I say, I can help you build your brand, they look me up and they say, okay, clearly you can.
Yes. Because you've done it.
Yes.
Yeah. Plus, it's who you are. And that's why it works. Like you can't fake that.
Yeah.
And so when you mentioned the media appearances and out there, that was a central point of the content piece then that you were communicating.
I communicated a lot. I did a lot of talks and things about how to do that. When I first started Women of Denver, I did an entire year of posting to Facebook every day. And so I would record videos on Sunday. I would change clothes and make videos for every day of the week. So I would put all the clothes out on the bed. I had, again, big bedroom back at that condo. I missed that condo. But big bedroom. I had
a lot of memories in that bedroom.
A lot of memories in that bedroom. I put up my little set. I had my lighting kit and everything. And then I would record all these videos. Sometimes I try to do 2 weeks at a time if I could. And they were just short little videos of me talking about quotes and giving a little bit of inspiration. And I wasn't trying to share content. There were no marketing tips or any of that stuff. It was just look at me for your daily inspiration and reflection. Back then they didn't have lives. So we had Periscope was the live. Right. Facebook hadn't launched it yet. Yeah. And so I would schedule them to post, and then I would boost each one $5 to make sure that people saw it. And I remember coming to work and people would say, I saw you dancing on my screen. And this was before TikTok.
I love it.
I would do little dances.
Clearly it worked. So how long were you doing that every Sunday for?
For over a year.
For over a year. That's right.
Yep. And so that was basically probably 2014 to 2015 or somewhere in between. And then I started hosting my own podcast, and then people would invite me to their podcast because they knew I had one. And so I would then get podcast invitations too. And so I started just getting all of these different opportunities to talk and be a part of the internet. And it just boosted everything. And the SEO, the search engine optimization, basically because of all the links that I had where I was linking to, I had my own brand page, but I also would link to the Women of Denver brand page. And so both of those got boosted quite a bit and would be more easily found on the internet because there were so many links to it.
Right. And would that be the same or similar strategy that you would recommend to someone today?
I would. I still recommend those same strategies. It just takes more links now. Right. And it depends on what you're in. So for example, I bought the skincare business, but then I recently just decided, let me create a CBD business. And I know it's going to take some time to take off. I have time. I have all the time in the world, buy my inventory, create the brand, and let it grow. And I have 3 to 4 times the daily traffic on that website than I do on the skincare because there's more competition in skincare. So I have some people working, the same people that do my marketing for my clients, I have them doing for me. And they said to me, Krystal, other skincare businesses have 20 to 50 articles going out a month. They have links constantly. They're constantly creating content. And the skincare business just makes income because the woman had done such a good job. She automated everything. It's on Amazon. And so there's revenue already. I want to triple it, of course. And so I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And it takes a lot more than with the CBD because it's new. There's less competition. So depending on what the competition looks like or how many businesses there are in that particular genre, that changes how much work you have to do. Right. Back then, and even now, the Women of Denver website still does really well. But back then, it did not take me a lot of links and a lot of, it really didn't take a lot for me to boost those things up. There's still not a ton as far as competition in the local environment for membership organizations because some of them shut down after the pandemic. And so they no longer exist. And so it did reduce the competition there. And so there's still demand because it's one of the only ones still standing. So that's something to think about as well, but really building yourself up starting your own podcast, if or things like that, where you can get constant links and get people talking and connecting with you. Those kind of things all help to build up your online presence.
And I guess being crystal clear on who your client is, so that in turn would cause you to decide where are you going to really focus on getting your word out and your presence. TikTok versus LinkedIn versus Instagram, or what do you think?
I have always been iffy on that one.
Okay.
So I've always been a little bit of a contrarian on niching, because I never niched. I did have, as far as, having a women's organization, I was niched in the fact that it was for women, but I never said this is for entrepreneurial women and these types of roles or anything like that. Or this is for corporate women and these. I had a corporate job. A lot of my members were entrepreneurs, but some had corporate jobs as well. And so I never did niche down in that way. I found a way to create opportunities for everybody. With my marketing company, I have found there are things that I'm really bad at as far as understanding what they're doing. But in general, there are general marketing principles. And so I never niched. I've worked with companies that are in home services. I've had accounting companies. I've done multiple bookkeeping companies. I've had AI, cryptocurrency, and they're, HR, they're across the board. And so what I learned is that there's general principles of how I can do this work for almost anyone. And that does not, I don't need to niche. And because I did do a good job of just branding myself as a marketing consultant, I continue to get work there and from all industries. So if I said that niching was the best way, I would be being inauthentic to my own path. But I know it works for many people.
So getting back to the social media platforms then, it sounds like you're not necessarily then making assumptions where a post will or will not hit. So initially, would you recommend placing content on all these and see what's working for you?
I do. So when it comes to social media, I think each one has its own style and brand. I think today placing content is not enough. And so if you have capacity, so for example, at night when I am, as I build these other brands that I'm creating and have, I have a long-term plan for, I put my baby to sleep and then I sit down with my laptop and every day I try to do one thing to help those brands progress. And so I'll sit down and I say, okay, I'm going to post one piece of content and then I'm going to spend an hour just commenting. And the commenting is what is helping me build. And it always has been important. Even when I built Women of Denver, my social media strategy, while I did do posts and I did pay to boost those posts,
yes,
I spent a lot of time. So when I had breaks from work, I would go sit outside. I would get my food. I would sit outside and then I would sit there and I would find local women and I would just say, oh, good job. Congratulations. And I would just say nice things on their posts.
Yes.
And I remember meeting this one person who was the first that ever told me that mattered. And she looked like she was miserable at the event. And I said, why are you here? And she said, because you're everywhere. And I can't escape you. So I might as well show up here. I realized, oh my gosh, so it's working. She didn't even want to be here, but she felt like she has to be here because I'm always commenting on her posts on Twitter. I was at that time I was heavy on Twitter because I kept winning things on Twitter. So people would do Twitter contests. I would win $200 here, $200 there.
Because you were so
free
active.
This. Yeah. So I was super active. I had like 11,000 followers or something. And so I would just find them and follow and comment on everything and reshare. And I had little lists of, people that I could keep up with and that posted a lot, and I would keep on those people. And so I would still do that today for sure, because posting is a lot less effective because there's, first of all, the algorithms are not in your favor. Even TikTok has changed their algorithm. In 2020, you could pop on TikTok, start dancing a little bit, and get like 100,000 followers.
Right.
And it's not that way anymore. I was not posting to TikTok. Now I wish I did at that time. I waited until afterwards, and I am now starting to get a few followers. But it's a platform that you have to be really strategic with how you create your content. That one is very specific in the way content is formulated in order to get results. And so that one is a lot more complex actually now. It was a space that was easy. And now it's a space that people have formulated this style, and you kind of have to start. And the style requires understanding how to edit, understanding how to create these storylines and the way that they're doing it, at least on the level of the expert and the and the niche guru kind of space. So it's kind of on the level of a YouTube, because you need to have this more complex and really high value content to succeed there, or you just need to dance your butt off.
Right. One or the other, or both.
One of the two. Yeah, or both. I see people doing both.
Thanks for those great tips. I do want to loop back to the purchase of the online skincare brand. How did you crunch the numbers on that to recognize it as a good opportunity for you? Like, what caused you to think this is a good fit? I can improve the numbers on this as well.
All we really wanted is something that has profit. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ton of profit. And so it's a 6-figure business, this company, but the profit that she had was relatively small. And so that made it a reasonable price because they charge by profit. And so when I looked at it and I said, okay, so it makes a solid income. It looks like it's quite automated. And I evaluated a ton of businesses. I talked to different business consultants who coordinate these sales of businesses. And I was able to get a rundown on about 5 or 6 quality businesses, some extremely expensive, some of them $500,000, and some of them really cheap. I talked to businesses that just wanted 10 grand to buy their business. And so there's a great variety, and they all make money. It's just a matter of this person's reason, just like my reason for not continuing with being the owner of Women of Denver. It doesn't work with their lifestyle anymore, or those people needed it to be a full income, and it's not providing that. But for me, if I make 6 grand per year from it, that has value for me. That's another income stream. And so those little income streams collect, together into our household and support us. So I didn't need a lot.
And I would imagine too, when you were taking a look at that, you also got an understanding of what they were doing from a marketing aspect. And I trust that was something that you felt that you could really elevate.
Yes, because that's another thing is, if anybody listening ever considers buying a business, the main thing to think about is, what is that person missing? So oftentimes there's a problem. For this person, she wanted to leave and she just wanted to cash out and go to another country. That's a whole nother issue, a whole nother thing. But she also did have an issue where she struggled. She knows big business marketing. Big businesses spend millions of dollars, and you're going to get something. When you're spending millions, you're going to get some results. When you have a smaller budget and you're trying to make this work, you can end up in debt and still not really be thriving. So for her, she didn't know that small business marketing. And I knew that because that's all I really serve. I work with small businesses. And so it's something that I could fix. I've heard of other stories of people who bought businesses with, for example, that if it's technical and they got to a point where they didn't know how to elevate the technology. So they needed to serve customers in a better way. This person said, oh, I know how to fix that. And then they went in, fixed it, and then the tool worked better, and then they were able to build more revenue. And again, these aren't necessarily always, $1 million businesses. This is something that you make an income. And so they could be a really great side hustle, a really great just side income that you don't have to spend a lot of time managing. And just filling in the gap of what somebody else couldn't do.
Mm-hmm. When I bought a self-storage business, it was pretty much the same thing. I took a look at the numbers and said, okay, this is what they're doing now, but here's all these opportunities that they're missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remind me again where you heard about the skincare business in the first place.
It's a website called Biz Buy Sell.
Okay.
I had posted my business on there previously. I had found it a couple years ago and I said, well, I wonder if anybody would ever bid on my business.
The
And
women's
so
organization?
yeah, when I
Yeah.
first considered maybe I could sell it, I had posted it there. And then I realized, oh, maybe I could buy something here. And so I went to the website, and a lot of brokers, business brokers, post business listings
Mhm.
there. And so the broker reached back out to me. I talked to several brokers that had posted there, and it's a great spot to find things. They list it by price. You can organize it. You can say you want something in a certain area or find something
Yes.
online. You can pick your industry, but there's so much out there. You have to know at least a little bit what you're interested in.
Of
I
course.
like
Yeah.
skincare. The stuff has
Mhm.
fixed my face. So I thought, oh my goodness, I bought some from her before I even finished the conversation. I said, okay, let me buy some and
Sure.
see.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So go through there, find some things that resonate with you, and then get with that
Yeah,
mentor or team that can help you go through it.
exactly.
Is there something that I should have asked you, Krystal, that I haven't yet?
I had made a mistake in college that really scared me off. So when I was in college, I sold lace front wigs before they were cool. They had just started becoming cool. So they have this kind of, this is my real scalp. It's not like, but they have this kind of scalp-like structure. And from afar or on camera, you can't tell that it's a wig on top of your head because there's
Yes.
lace here that looks kind of like a skin color and your real skin can show through.
Got it.
And so people, they're really popular now, which I wish I had kept the lace wig company and just kind of had it on the side, because at that point, the amount of SEO authority I would have had would have been great.
So you had this business back in college?
Yeah, in college, but I messed up. I didn't know anything about business financials. I didn't know about taxes. I never paid taxes on that. I didn't know, but I went into debt. And so I had all this debt because initially it was just a couple of wigs. I bought a couple of wigs and I sold them on eBay, and I made hundreds of dollars. And I said, okay, this is great. And my dad invested a little bit of money to help me buy some inventory. So I had inventory literally in my college dorm room. My roommates thought I was weird, to say the least. They thought a lot of weird things about me. Roommate with a bunch of heads covered in wigs in her bedroom is, and so that went on for a while, but then the industry shifted, and so basically the Chinese suppliers that were supplying my wigs, they started selling on eBay themselves. And so it drove the price down. And so it wasn't as worthwhile because they could charge less than me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't making any money. I was losing money. So I had to just kind of sell it all off. And then my credit card had all this stuff on it that I thought was going to get paid off because I thought I was selling them for 500 and I had to sell them for 100. And I got really discouraged after that. I had all this debt. I had creditors calling me. I was so embarrassed and so hurt. And it was years before I decided to try to do something again. And I think what people need to know is those things are possible. And you could hurt yourself, hurt your finances and hurt your spirit by making a mistake. But just know that all entrepreneurs make mistakes somewhere along the line. I've made bad hiring mistakes. I've had so many errors. And so you do the best you can. You need to find the education. Listening to podcasts helps, but also going to the training sessions. So there's, here in Colorado, we have something called the SBDC, and it's I don't remember what the initials stand for. Small Business Development Center.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And so I began really, when I left my job and began really building my business, I was there regularly.
Nice.
And they provide free coaching, and they have people who have been veterans in business to help you. And I literally sat down with my numbers and I said, this is what I need to make. This is how much I need to pay myself. How can I do this? And they would help me figure it out and help me strategize the big questions, because it is very difficult to figure everything out on your own.
Yes.
And so those things really help. And then Women of Denver helped because I was able to say to people, I spoke out loud my concerns. I would say, I didn't realize my marketing consulting was not paying me enough. I would say, why I'm still charging what time and a half was at my corporate job, and it's not enough. It
Nice.
seems like a lot per hour, but it actually is not enough to sustain my life. And they said, well, you need to double your fee. And I said, well, what if I lose my customers? They said, then you lose customers that weren't making you enough anyway.
Right.
And so they taught me little lessons, told me to be daring and to do these things, and it worked out.
Nice.
And so having a community, having mentorship, taking advantage of free resources and education is essential.
Agreed. And the small business development center that you mentioned, they may be called by another name, but they are available in so many communities.
Yes.
Take advantage of them. I was a trainer mentor at one of them for a number of years as well.
You have a really great background.
My first career was in banking. Don't hold it against me. But yeah, I'm a number cruncher from way back.
Oh.
You mentioned that the skincare business was automated.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like?
So for some products, they are in Amazon FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. And so I just make sure there's enough inventory and I fill those, I send them to Amazon and they distribute it. And so that means it's on Amazon Prime and they deal with all of the shipping and everything. I just have to deal with customer service, and I could technically pay Amazon to do that. On the Shopify side, she had what they call a 3PL. I don't know what that stands for. Oh, I do. Third-party logistics. Every time I think I don't know what this thing stands for, I do. It's a third-party logistics company, and all of the products are there. They take the inventory in, and when an order comes in, it automatically generates an order for them to ship that product out. So I don't do anything but market. And I also have to monitor the inventory to make sure I place an order at the right time to have product available. So I have to order a certain quantity at a time, and I have to order I have to order the labels and the boxes and make sure that the product will be available when I need it, because it takes 8 to 10 weeks to produce the bottles of the serums and moisturizers and such. And so that is my main duty, is inventory replenishment, right, and marketing.
And do you have to get all that shipped to you and put the labels on and all that, or is that already
they do it all?
They do it all.
All the companies she found made it super easy. So I order the labels go to the company that produces the product. Once they produce that batch, they label it. They provide the bottles and they label it. Everything just happens.
Which frees you up to do all these other amazing things that you do.
Yeah. So it's possible to have things that don't take a lot of time, but still make thousands in revenue each month.
Nice. So what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Krystal?
You can find me on my website, krystalcovington.com, or anywhere on social media. Krystal, go lead. Krystal with a K.
Well, by starting not one, but 2 side hustles, you clearly know how to take action. What's your best tip, Krystal, to inspire others to jump into their side hustle dream?
Listen to all the people on the internet and all the people on podcasts that have done it and are still excited about it, and let them be your motivation to know that you can do it too. You're no different than the rest of us, and we can all be successful in our own way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Krystal, for sharing your hustling journey, your insights on marketing and businesses in general, and growing a women's organization. Congratulations again on that. And for being today's side hustle hero.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
For the most part in this podcast, we talk about starting and then scaling a side hustle business. But have you ever thought about buying an existing one? Certainly there are pros and cons to buying versus starting your own. If you do decide that buying an existing one might be for you, please do your due diligence. Sadly, as we all know, there are no shortage of scammers out there. But thankfully, there are a lot of honest folks too who want to pass along what they've built on to the next person who can bring it to the next level. Krystal alluded to that when she talked about the sale of the Women of Denver networking company she owned. She felt that placing it in the hands of the person who would become the new owner could cause it to grow it even further. When she talked about that, it jogged a memory for me back in my mid-20s when I had a thoroughbred mare that I showed in horse shows. I had raised her from a young filly, but I felt that by the time she had become a 5-year-old, I had taken her as far as I could, and that it was time to pass the reins, pardon the pun, I couldn't resist, to someone else with the time, the drive, the talent, and expertise to bring her to the next level, to cause her to shine and perform in a much greater way than I could. And on a corporate level, I was sitting on the other side of the table when buying my self-storage business. In truth, when I crunched the numbers on the deal, I felt that we were paying about $100,000 over market value. But it was a rare opportunity to purchase a self-storage facility, and I was convinced that we could add so much value to it that that amount over a relatively short period of time would not be a deal breaker. Turns out, yay, it was a very wise choice. Krystal pointed out that businesses are bought and sold on the amount of net income they generate. So a business that has gross sales of, say, $300,000 could be relatively inexpensive if it's only generating, say, $10,000 a year in net profit. Seriously, at the end of the day, it's really about how much money you'll be able to keep after all the expenses, reserves, and taxes are paid. The business Krystal bought, Bella Virtue Organics, was not just any business, but one that was extremely automated, allowing her to apply and focus her time in the business on her area of genius, which is marketing. That's smart. If you decide to explore the path of buying a business rather than starting from the ground up, I encourage you to do some serious due diligence. If you have the expertise to do that on your own, great, but most of us don't. So find someone or some people that you trust that are knowledgeable about buying businesses and or online businesses, if that's where you're headed, so that they can help walk you through not only the numbers, but guide you in spotting the red flags, inconsistencies, and help you to ask the right questions and verify the answers so that you can make an educated and wise decision. Well, that's a wrap for today. You'll find a link to Krystal's website and the show notes on our website, sidehustleheropodcast.com. And I'd love to hear your feedback on the show, on the guests, how this podcast is helping you. What areas could we do better? Tell me if you're leaning towards starting your own side hustle or buying an existing business. Shoot me an email message to hello@joanposivy.com or by DM on Instagram @joanposivy. Thanks for listening and hustle on.